Today I thought I would put up another video in a series that I've been doing for about 2 years now, highlighting different mastering engineers in the industry and a selection of projects or titles that they've been involved in as far as mastering and cutting lacquers. And today I want to feature one of the most renowned mastering engineers that most people, if you are an audiophile, if you are just someone off the street who is ordering a record off of Amazon, or hopefully even better, your local record shop, you're walking in and picking up a new remastered title, you're going to probably know who I'm talking about. It is Chris Bellman. So Chris Bellman, together with, let's say, Kevin Gray, Bernie Grundman, Ryan K. Smith, those are kind of the top four that I'm off the top of my head thinking of right now that are heavily involved in the reissue and remastering industry here as we sit today in late 2023. Now, Chris Bellman goes way back to like 1975. He started his career part-time working for Alan Zent's mastering house. Alan Zent, as the story goes, was going to be building a recording studio that eventually would couple with his mastering studio, and Alan Zent's was a highly regarded boutique mastering studio at that point in time in the mid to late 1970s in Los Angeles. And Bellman got a part-time job. He had attended, famously, he saw a flyer for a class for recording engineers and how do you record and mix albums. And the next part of that process was actually to go to a mastering facility and cut a 45. And he did that with his class, and in passing he actually met Alan Zentz at Alan Zentz Mastering, told him he would be interested in a job at this new recording studio that Alan Zentz had in the planning stages. Well, it eventually took over a year for that recording studio to come to fruition, but in the meantime, somewhere in that timeline, Alan Zentz had Chris Bellman's phone number and said, hey, we're still not ready with the recording studio, but I need some part-time help in my mastering studio. Are you interested? And Chris Bellman said he was, and kind of the rest is history. He started out making dub copy tapes and, couriering things back, mule couriering things back and forth around the San Fernando Valley and greater Los Angeles area. And eventually, I think the first project he ever worked on as far as cutting a lacquer was something associated with Richard Perry and Carly Simon. It was Nobody Does It Better, the James Bond theme single. And so he was involved in that, and Alan Zentz actually took him aside and said, hey, if my client is going to be asking you to help and I'm not available, I guess we better teach you, how this all works. So that he was kind of thrown feet first into this. And, Chris Bellman, I heard a podcast from about a year ago, and Chris Bellman actually told Alan Zentz, well, hey, don't forget, I'm still interested in being a recording engineer. I'm not sure about this whole mastering engineer stuff. And Alan Zentz told him, hey, give me a year of your time, work in the mastering facility with us, and in a year's time, if you want to branch out and go into the recording engineer side of the equation, no problem, let us know. Chris Bellman never looked back, and he worked for Alan Zentz all the way up until, I think, 1984, and he went to work for Bernie Grundman's newly formed Bernie Grundman mastering facility, and he's been with Bernie Grundman ever since. So I thought I would show just kind of a smattering of things that I think sound amazing. Save for the very first title, this is one of the early titles that Chris Bellman cut for Alan Zentz. That, of course, is the 1980 debut album from LA punk band X. So famously, this is Los Angeles. It came out on the Slash label, but you will find an AZ with a very, very neat CB in the dead wax for Chris Bellman. This was an amazing record. Let's show you what that label looks like. There is that early Slash label right there. Famously, this thing was produced by Ray Manzarek. X actually did a cover of Soul Kitchen on side 1. There is the band John Doe, Exene Cervenka, DJ Bonebreak on drums, and of course the great Billy Zoom with that rockabilly punkish guitar of his. This is an incredible album. It is by no means an audiophile record, but if you put this on, you will automatically kind of be transported in time to a great time period in music. I mean, 1980, punk, new wave, just emerging, and the West Coast, of course, had their own hardcore and punk scene. I'm not classing X as hardcore. They got actually more mainstream and poppier as they moved along in their career. But this is an incredible debut record. Johnny Hit and Run, Pauline, one of my favorite tracks. There's plenty of punch, there's plenty of drive and slam on this record, with a decent soundstage, but again, it's not an audiophile record, but it's a feeling, it's the emotion of what this band set out to do, and Chris Bellman was a big part of bringing this thing to the public, so props to Bellman. I just found this, this is kind of a sampler of the Last Waltz, and you can see it was a promo copy. There is the back cover. So it's a little bit of a taster for what eventually was, I believe the Last Waltz is a double album, but Chris Bellman mastered this record, and you'll find his CB in the dead wax next to AZ for Alan Zentz. This is great because it's got kind of an interesting selection of songs they decided to go with as far as the sampler side of things. Further up on the road with Clapton, Helpless, Neil Young, The Great Caravan, the Van Morrison kind of rave-up song. Side 2, we've got Up on Cripple Creek, Dry Your Eyes, kind of the oddball choice of having Neil Diamond there, but Neil Diamond was being produced by Robbie Robertson at the time that they shot that film. Life is a Carnival, the band, of course. Baby Let Me Follow You Down, the reprised version of that, and I Shall Be Released, where they brought out Ringo and Ron Wood. And, famously, Dylan started the lead vocal, but I think the second verse was covered by the great Richard Manuel of the band. This is a fun record. It says from the Warner Brothers 3-record set, The Last Waltz, featuring the band with all these guest stars. So Chris Bellman, not only did he do this little sampler, but he did the 3-record set, and that is a great sounding record. This is a great sounding little sampler. Okay, now I want to move into the reissue side of the equation for Chris Bellman, and I'm just going to show you a bunch of different stuff that he has done that I feel are definitive versions of these titles. Let's start with Wilco's great debut album from 1995, AM. This was an expanded version. It came out on a double 33 RPM. And one of my favorite Wilco records of all time. They've really moved away from this sound. This was more Uncle Tupelo than Wilco at the time, but a great sounding record. And this was a 2017 reissue release. Let's see if you can see the title there with the deluxe version mentioned on the spine. Of course, Chris Bellman has a long history with Van Halen. He has redone their entire catalog. The first 5 David Lee Roth titles, of course, were first. There's a nice hype for 1984. This was a 30th anniversary edition where Bellman is actually name-checked there on the sticker, which is great. And, the story with Van Halen and Chris Bellman is Bellman was involved in mastering that greatest hits package that they put out back in, what was it? I think 1990. I think that dates back to the mid-90s. That is when they brought in David Lee Roth and cut 2 new tracks, Me Wise Magic and You Can't Get That Stuff No More. 2 great tracks, by the way. And Bellman remastered that entire package along with the 2 new songs. And when it came time for Van Halen finally to remaster and re-release those original David Lee Roth titles, Eddie Van Halen remembered Chris Bellman and actually called him personally, found his number somewhere, and said, hey, Warner's has already started on this project. He got a test copy of probably the first Van Halen record, didn't like the sound, called up Chris Bellman, and Chris Bellman got the job from there. They just came out with Volume 2, the Sammy Hagar years. If I'm not mistaken, I think Bellman was involved with that as well. But I know that being a David Lee Roth era fan, all of these records sound absolutely amazing. And, in that podcast that I mentioned, I'm going to drop a link to that podcast because it's a really good discussion with him on the Carol Pop podcast. He talked about, these Van Halen records, when they originally came out, they were mastered for vinyl because vinyl was the medium at that point in time, the number one medium. There was 8-track tapes and cassettes, but vinyl was what Eddie Van Halen and Don Landy knew and loved. So the original albums were mastered with vinyl in mind, and those originals sound amazing. So that was a very, very high bar, but all the people that listen to these reissues are astonished by how great they sound and how kind of true to form, true to the originals. In some cases, they surpass a near mint original, so that is really high praise. Van Halen catalog, check it out. Great reissues cut by Chris Bellman. This is probably my favorite Flaming Lips record. Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots. Just an amazing kind of neo-psych folk, acid rocky album. And this particular reissue was on black vinyl, and it just sounds glorious. You can find the CB in the Dead Wax for Bellman. This is a really, really lovely sounding record, and I just love the atmospherics. I love the variety of music on this thing. It's a great record. Back in the mid-2000s, Michael Hobson with Classic Records licensed a bunch of Who titles, and I think Chris Bellman was involved in all of them. I particularly love this 200 gram Qui-X vinyl version of the Who by Numbers. This is an amazing listen. It's the best I've ever heard this thing, and I've got a UK. I have the Mastering Lab, which is Doug Sachs, of course, US original. This is a fantastic sounding record, and I just did a little update on Who's Next. Chris Bellman's Who's Next cut with Classic Records is in the running for one of the best sounding pressings of that record that you can find. Short of, everyone has their own opinion, but I personally think the UK early track and then the Doug Sachs Decca US first editions are amazing as well. But yeah, he did several Who titles for Classic Records, and this is a great sounding version of a really good, kind of an overlooked Who title these days, the Who by Numbers. Okay, kind of moving into the modern era, Bellman is putting out brand new projects as well quite often. I know he's been involved in a couple Spoon releases, and he has also worked with Beck. This is Colors. One of the curves that Beck has gone down over the last 7 or 8 years is Colors. Very poppy, very kind of in-your-face production, but it sounds fantastic. It's not my favorite Beck record by any stretch of the imagination, but the songs Dreams and Colors are a lot of fun. Up All Night as well, and this is a great sounding pressing. Colors, Beck, Chris Bellman, mastered. Of course, Chris Bellman is very famous for his archival work that he has done for Neil Young, Tom Petty, and the Grateful Dead. I just picked up on Saturday Without a Net. This is the great 3-record set that I originally had on CD. And you will find Chris Bellman in the Dead Wax. I got this actually at Barnes & Noble, and they have a color variant. It's like a baby blue. Let me pull one of these records out. There it is right there. And yes, these are in very nice anti-static sleeves. If you watch my recent Who's Next video, I had a little bit of a meltdown in that video because I'm sick and tired of paying, in this case, I think it was $89 for that Who 3 LP, Who's Next, and the Lifehouse demos. They came in that shiny paper sleeves that, they're notorious for shedding paper and scratching records. So I think, it's important for these archival releases that people go the extra mile, and the Grateful Dead has done that for all of these archival boxes that I own. But this is a fantastic live set. This was recorded in 1989 and 1990, and it was the last recorded live music that they have with Brent Midland, fantastic vocalist and keyboard player, passed away. I think it was late July in 1989. There are some songs here with him on this. Also on this, guesting on a few tracks is Branford Marsalis on sax. Really, really lovely set from latter period Dead. Jerry Garcia is in great form. Great guitar and good vocals from him. I really love the Eyes of the World version, which clocks in at over 16 minutes on the second record in this set. So a great job from Chris Bellman. And if you don't have, those original Warner Brothers early 70s albums on the Olive labels, by all means seek out the Bellman cuts. They are going to probably be dead silent and very, very, very conquerable to those early 70s OGs. I am so thankful that I picked up I have the 8 LP version of Wildflowers and All the Rest. This is an amazing record. In that podcast, Bellman talks about working with the Petty team to put out the remastered version of the actual Wildflowers record, and he was given access to the original master tapes, which had not been assembled originally for the limited vinyl release that came out in like 1994. So they obviously did some kind of a digital cut from 1994, but he went back to the original master tapes, working with Petty's engineer Ryan Ulate, I believe is how you pronounce Ryan's last name. And this is just an amazing set. I think this version is out of print, but I know you can still get the Wildflowers proper remastered album with Chris Bellman and the Dead Wax. One of the best sounding records in my collection. Last but not least, let's talk about Chris Bellman's work with Neil Young. So he goes way back with Neil Young. He actually mastered and cut the lacquer for this 1996 record, which is one of the best sounding records in my collection, Broken Arrow. This is an awesome Neil and Crazy Horse record. Very, very jammy, and it has a certain vibe to it, and the sound is absolutely amazing. It was issued on a 2-record set, as a 2-record set. Some of the great songs on this record, Loose Change and Big Time, also This Town, a really underappreciated title from Neil Young and Crazy Horse, 1996. This is very, very hard to find on vinyl, and it took me a couple years to track this thing down finally. The CD sounds really good as well, but I think the vinyl record experience just adds a little more punch, a little more slam, a little more presence, which is why we all love listening to stuff on vinyl. Bellman has been involved in Neil Young's archival offerings now for years, and it is a fantastic thing that you can walk into a shop right now and find a brand new copy of Neil Young's Harvest record, and you can listen to that, and it is like going back in time. It rivals those very early pressings as far as depth, soundstage, presence, air in all the right places. It's a great listen, and that coupled with a brand new slab of vinyl that's going to be pretty much silent, because they really take care in the pressings for the Neil Young catalog. Amazing, amazing, amazing. That's a wrap on today's video, taking a look at the career of the renowned mastering engineer Chris Bellman, one of the foremost mastering engineers right now, still working today. I'm going to drop a link to that podcast. I'm going to drop another link to a great interview that he did on YouTube with one of my favorite channels, Ian, with Broke with Audiophile Taste, or from Broke with Audiophile Taste. Ian is doing sporadic videos now. I wish he would do more, but everyone's busy. Everyone has stuff that they have to do in life, so I hope Ian's doing well. But this guy, out of nowhere, did a series of videos with several people, and I'm not sure if there's another on-camera Chris Bellman interview available right now. As far as the extensive conversation that Ian had with him. So props to Ian, and thanks to Chris Bellman for all the great mastering work. Our ears appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.